Hello, friends. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Welcome to DW's View. Stand up. If we do not stand up for what we believe, who will? My sponsor helps keep this podcast on the air. And my sponsor is my personal coach, Ms. Kim Yater. If you're feeling stuck in any part of your life and you just can't move forward, then you need to contact my personal coach, Kim Yater. It may be personal or it may be on a professional level, but you can request a complimentary strategy session with Kim Yater. And it's at Kim Yater, make sure I get this right, Calendly, CALENDLY.com/Kim Yater. It's okay to be stuck, but it's not okay for you to stay stuck, friends. And today I have a very, very special friend that I want to introduce you to. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. His name is Malcolm McGough, and you're just in for a treat today. Malcolm is an Australian citizen and a permanent resident of the United States. And he became a permanent resident in 2019. Malcolm is a 25-year veteran and a retired lieutenant colonel from the Australian Army. He has a bachelor's of administration and majoring in strategic studies and government policy, a Bachelor of Science majoring in applied technology, and a doctorate diploma in logistics. As a senior military officer, he was selected to and is a graduate of the Australian Army Command and Staff College in 1995. And I'm going to stop there because you got to read the rest of Malcolm's bio when you listen to our podcast. But Malcolm, I want to thank you for those 25 years of service in the Australian Army. What a blessing that you were Lieutenant Colonel. And I always like to recognize our military and thank those who serve. And whether it's there or here, I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dolores. No problem.
Yes. Now, Malcolm, what caused you to leave Australia and come to the United States?
What reason other than love caused me to leave Australia? So I fell in love with an American attorney, and I came here and worked with the Yankee Institute for Public Policy. So that's the reason I left, but it's probably the best decision I've ever made.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful, Malcolm. Wonderful. Now, I know you became a permanent resident in 2019, and I know you had some problems with your papers, but you plan to fill out your paperwork for permanent citizenship?
Absolutely, and I'm in the process of preparing that paperwork right now.
Amen. Well, I want to commend you on that. As I said before, when we see people running across the border from all over the place, I want to commend you for doing it the right way.
It probably would have been easier for me to do it that way, but
yeah, no point in taking a chance. Huh?
No,
not even worth it. But anyway, I was looking up a little bit of information about Australia, and I saw that Australia is the 6th largest country as far as landmass in the world, and that was amazing to me.
Well, it's the largest island in the world. It's also a continent, and it's also a country. So it's got all three covered. But it comes 6th after Russia, Antarctica, Canada, China, and America. So,
yeah, Malcolm, I was listening to a report last night, and says that China is put a boycott on Australia. They are threatening Australia, and they are threatening the military of the United States because they want to invade Taiwan. They've been wanting to do that, and I think President Trump was the only thing standing in the way and keeping Taiwan safe from the Chinese. And
I think you're correct. And Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister of Australia, has really stood up to the Chinese Belt and Road policy, Belt and Road where they go into countries and take over their ports and their major strategic locations. And Scott Morrison pushed back and said, no, that's not going to happen in Australia. And China really does rely on Australia for a lot of its products like iron ore. We're the major supplier of China in iron ore out of Australia. So they've got to be careful, because they haven't got the capability just yet to do anything against Australia or any other major nation for that matter, because they just don't have enough aircraft carriers to create that leap into the Pacific.
Yeah. Well, I pray for Taiwan and the people, because those people want to be free.
Absolutely.
I mean, China has no problem invading territories and just more or less, just invading and taking over. And I think of the people. What was it? They invaded last year. Was it? They invaded one of the other. No, it wasn't North Korea. It'll come to me, but yeah, China is just, they've just not been nice about.
Well, China since the new administration has come in, they've really started to flex their muscles, and that's never a thing for the world. I mean, we are the only, that is America is the only thing stopping China from expanding even more, and sadly, this administration is not pushing back as hard as they should.
Oh yeah, I don't think they're pushing back at all. I think China seems to have a lot of control over them, and weakness brings about aggression, and
that was Trump's theory. I mean, strength through a strong military.
Oh yeah.
You have a soft military, and the Chinese will overrun this world if they get the chance.
Yeah, well, I definitely keep our military in prayer, because of the leadership. It's anyway, we'll move on we can't solve that problem, but but it's good to bring it out, though. I always talk about these things just so people know what the truth is, and kind of know, some people may not necessarily agree, but still we have to speak the truth. And
Absolutely.
we have to let people know what is happening in our culture. Now, Malcolm, what writings influence you concerning your thinking on America? Something.
Well, I mean, I could go back to when I was 6. I was mentioning to you before I started this podcast. My brother died when I was 6, and he was 16, and it was a sad moment. It was the second loss of a child by my parents, and they were struggling. So my grandmother came to visit us, and to kind of just watch over us spiritually. She was a true believer, and she brought with her 10 books called the Bible Story. And apart from me just loving all the pictures of what was happening in the Bible at that time, one of the books had a picture of an American family sitting down to dinner, and father in his grey suit. This was probably the 50s. Father in his grey suit and 2 perfectly dressed kids, which at the end of the table, which I'd never seen at our table, because we had 8 kids, and we had a big kind of a farm, and so we were never perfectly dressed at the dinner table. But what struck me about this picture, apart from the fact that Mum looked as though she'd just come from the day spa, was the picture of the person outside, and that person was in a long white robe, a long brown hair, a kind of a goatee, and the caption was, "If Jesus knocked on your door tonight, would you invite him in for supper?" And that immediately gave me an impression of what Americans were all about, that they love the Lord, that they just sought him at every turn. And it became evident to me that was the reason why America was so great, because of their love of the Lord and their trust in the Lord. The second thing that struck me was a book titled Alexis de Tocqueville's Democracy in America. And he was a French philosopher of the 1830s. And the influence that book had on me, it told me exactly who Americans were, that they did not need to be directed by government. And that's what de Tocqueville witnessed. He said he traveled the country and nowhere did he see the evidence of the federal government. It was all about local people taking control of local issues and being responsible for their own destiny. And in the second verse of America the Beautiful, It goes something like, America, America, oh, sorry, oh, 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 beautiful for patriots' feet, whose stern impassioned stress, a thoroughfare for freedom across the wilderness. But this next part is what struck me. America, America, God shed thine every flaw and clothe thy soul in self-control. In other words, you be the controller of where you're going, not have a government do it for you. So clothe thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law, and protect your liberty with the highest law in the land, which of course is your constitution. So that stuck with me throughout my childhood. And it just gave a picture of a country whose exceptional people did not need to be told what to do. They did not need to be told what was right and wrong. And sadly, I think we've lost a bit of that. Yeah. So, because the government in 1946, you know, the Saul Alinsky wrote rules for Ravelli for radicals.
Yeah, rules for radicals.
And since then, we've gone downhill in this country, sadly. But I think we've turned the corner. I think we're starting to realize, and the people are waking up to what America was, what she should be, and what she's meant to be, the beacon of hope and light for the world to look to. So yeah. I think they are waking up. The other books, of course, was Washington's War and the Federalist Papers. I consumed them. My father-in-law gave me all these books and the Federalist Papers. And I just loved the discussion that occurred with the Founding Fathers pre-Constitution, because those Federalist Papers were used to determine which way this country was going to go. And I just love them to bits.
Yeah, you know, Malcolm, that is so beautiful. You know, these are the things that need to be taught, the real history of this country, and not teaching this hate. And I'm going to say it, critical race is teaching hate, is teaching dividing us. We will be divided from within by teaching hate, and we call it by whatever name you want, is hate. Critical race is nothing but dividing us from each other by skin color, which not one of us, and I'm gonna say it again, not one of us has control of our skin color. That is God's decision, who we are, what color we are. We have no control of it. We can't change it. So stop teaching the kids, oh, whiteness, you gotta apologize for your whiteness. Oh, you're black, you can't prosper. Yes, we can do anything because of who we are in Christ.
Absolutely.
Because God made us. He put us here in this country, and we need to appreciate this country. I'm just going to say it. We don't appreciate. We don't teach our children. We teach them to hate their own country, and they think they can go somewhere else. You know what, Malcolm? If they were to go to Venezuela, or Cuba, or China, go over there and stay one day. You'd be trying to run back here to America.
Absolutely.
To appreciate what you have.
And why aren't people rushing to immigrate to China, Venezuela? But, I mean, think about 1946 when Ravelli for Radicals came out. That essentially became the Liberal Progressive Left playbook for going forward. And they had 8 things that in that book that they said they needed to control for America to be transformed from this beautiful beacon of hope and light for the rest of the world to look to a socialist, ACA communist country. And I'll just mention a couple of them. But control the healthcare, and you control the people.
Yes.
Get people into poverty, gun control, remove the ability for people to defend themselves. Take control of every aspect of people's lives. You know, their food, their work, their businesses. Take control of whatever is taught in schools. Now, you think about this. Since 1966, the revolution, the hippie revolution, you know, our schools and colleges have been impregnated by liberal progressive lefts, and they have taken over as professors, as teachers, as heads of the school districts, you know, in the board of education, and we never pushed back. We allowed that to happen, and we allowed it to happen because we were afraid of being labelled a misogynist, a bigot, a homophobe, or somebody that didn't like homosexuals. I mean, it's just crazy. And
yeah.
because of it, because we didn't push back, we remained mute. And
Yeah.
because of that, we've allowed our schools, our churches, our families, our businesses, our every level of government to be taken over and controlled by liberal progressive strategies. And that's sad.
Yeah, it's very sad, and things have to change, Malcolm. They have to change here in America, or there's not going to be an America. And I mean that. It's serious. Some people don't believe it, but America can slip away, and if we don't change course, we will slip away.
I
once
agree.
You lose a freedom that you have, you don't get it back.
Yeah.
You just don't get it back. Look at Cuba. Cuba was once free, prosperous. Look at them now. Venezuela, richest country and the most oil resources in the world. But look at them now. People are digging in trash cans for a living, and that's a fact. But anyway, let me move on to ask you this. Now, when you came here, what is the Yankee Institute for Public Policy? Now, it was out of Trinity College that recruited you, and you were a senior analyst.
The Yankee Institute for Public Policy is an organization that writes and comments on public policy, on what the government of the day is doing. They comment about the elections, and then they produce these papers that are then distributed into the community, so that the people in Connecticut, for example, can actually know what's going on in their government and what the government is spending their money on, what policies are coming down the tube, and essentially so that we the people, can push back against those negative or those negative regulations, those policies that take us down a path that's not America.
Yeah.
And it's really a think tank to push out information to the public so they can push back against it.
Oh, okay. Well, it sounds like that's very, very much needed, and even more so. I was listening to how the IRS, how they targeted people on the lowest learner during the Obama administration. Those same tactics are being used again on the American citizens, and that stuff needs to stop. But let me ask you this: were you involved in politics in Australia?
I really didn't know who I was until I went to Command and Staff College as a senior major, and I'd never been involved in politics. I just voted, and I voted for the personality rather than the policy. So when I went to Command and Staff College, we had 80 people from all over the world at the college, and we would have groups of 10, and we would debate various issues. And one day I was debating on a particular subject. It was Israel and the seven-day war, and all these people opposite me were kind of criticizing my stance, supporting Israel. And in the end, they just yelled at me and said, "You're just a redneck." And I thought, what the hell is a redneck? Well, I looked it up, and it had something to do with believing in Bible and believing in conservative values and pro-life. I think, you're right, that's what I am. And so no, I wasn't involved in politics, but it's where I first learned what I believed. And so when I came to America, I did my due diligence, and I checked out the political demographics of New England, and it was all blue. And I say, yes, thank you, Lord. Not realizing that in America, blue is the left, whereas in Australia, blue is the right.
Oh my God. What a shock.
It was a hell of a shock when I started in politics here, and my wife ran for Attorney General, and I just realized that even Republicans had taken God out of their platform.
Oh.
So my wife ran on a platform of freedom, faith, and fortune. Fortune not being money, but fortune being the fortunes that God gives us. Mm-hmm. And they refused to allow her to run at the convention unless she removed faith out of the platform.
Wow.
And
my goodness.
Of course, she didn't, and she won the convention 67% to 15. So they were in shock. So, yeah, so that's how I got started to get involved in politics.
Oh my goodness! So it sounds like politics in the United States is a more of a rough game here than it is in Australia.
Yeah, it is a rough game. I mean, we have barbecues at our polling stations when we have. And you can hand out pamphlets right up to the front door of the election facility.
Wow.
It's a lot of fun, our politics, but here it's a serious business, and so it should be. Because, yeah, I was going to say,
we've got cheaters here. We've got people who will cheat, who will lie, steal, cheat, and they have no problem with it.
and we've got to fix that. And it is so serious here. Politics is so serious because of America's role in the world. I mean, America was always meant to be that beacon of hope and light for the rest of the world to look to.
Yeah.
And if she goes down, my country's next, followed by New Zealand, followed by Canada, if Canada hasn't already gone. And then
my God. I don't want to cut you off, Malcolm, but you know what? I was looking last night. Do you know that they're burning churches in Canada? Yep. My God, I looked at that. I knew that there was a problem because I saw two ministers, two brothers actually, preachers in Canada for preaching the gospel. One of them they're waiting to go to court. They were dragging him on the ground, literally.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he said he could spend 4 years in prison. His brother could go to prison for 2 years. And now they are burning down the churches in Canada.
Yeah. And that's why we must come back to God.
Yes.
What's happened here in America, we've taken God out of everything.
Oh my God. You know what, Malcolm? When we look at the crime in the streets, and I was looking at this group, I think it was called Muse or some group here in the United States, I'd never heard of them. This group, they're a militant group, and they literally think that they don't have to have IDs. They can do whatever they want to do with no repercussion. But guess what? That's what our governors, especially in the blue states, are doing. Yep. They are not prosecuting crime. They are giving no bail. They're letting people run free after they have committed heinous crimes. But yet, now the people, and you can talk about this when we get on the next question, but the people who went into the Capitol building, they should have gone in there. They should not have gone in there. Nobody gave them permission to do that. But
that's actually not true. That's not true. The videos out now are showing the police inviting them into the.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So they were coerced.
There's plenty of videos where the police opened the doors and the police were inviting protesters in and saying to them, "Yes, come on in, but don't do any damage."
Okay.
So that's a media lie.
Okay.
This was not an insurrection at all.
Well, I knew it wasn't an insurrection, but it sounds like a setup.
Absolutely, it was a setup.
I think that it sounds like those people were set up to go in there so that exactly what's happening now. See that Ms. Pelosi is putting these police, they're federal police in Florida, one in California, one in Florida, because they want power and they want control.
Because they're panicking at the moment. They're panicking because the people have awoken. The Great Awakening is here. And the people of America realize that would never be one man. Just like the Revolutionary War wasn't one Washington only. It was the people. And we, the people, are awake, and they will be pushing back. And what comes out of Maricopa County in terms of the forensic audit of the election there will be a game changer for this country to turn back, and we've got to get honesty back into our elections.
We do. Now, why are they hiding? I understand, Malcolm, that there are hundreds. Well, I don't know if there are hundreds, but there are so many hours of recording that the government is hiding that they will not release of what happened on that day.
Because they don't want you to know what happened. They just want to go ahead with their narrative that it was an insurrection by Trump rioters. I've been to many rallies around the country, and I've run three myself here in California when I came over here. And I've never seen a Trump supporter violent.
No.
Loud? Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, patriotic.
Yeah, but never violent. And
Yeah.
the violence always comes from the outside.
Yeah.
And that's what they're hiding from the Capitol, the true source of the violence, which includes undercover agents, as far as I can see.
Yeah. Now, Malcolm, now you became manager of President Trump's campaign offices across many states and field director for the Trump-Pence presidential campaign. And then finally, you became director of the Trump 2020 California grassroots campaign. How did you get involved with that?
Well, I was in my office in Connecticut on the 1st of February 2016, and I supported Trump. But there was a call out for volunteers to go up to New Hampshire. So I packed my bags, I went up to New Hampshire. I then got invited to Connecticut, to South Carolina. And then I was paid by the Trump campaign to help run offices around the country.
Oh, okay.
But when I finally finished, I thought to myself, I've got to get a real job. And so I came home, and after 3 days, I can't stand this. There's too much going on in this country, and I need to be involved. So I made a phone call. I prayed first, and I said, God, if you really want me to go to California, then you're going to have to find me a flight under $400 return. The good Lord just saved me $20. It came in at $380, and it was me. The flight was leaving the next day. So I flew to California, and the moment I landed, the person that I was going to help, he said, the Southwest Regional Manager for the Trump campaign said he wants a clone of me, in other words, the other person. And he said, I've just told him he's landed. And so I was sent up to Anaheim, and that's where it started. I ran 3 events, and then was asked to come on board as political and field operations director for California.
Yeah.
And California is amazing. I mean, California won the election for Trump. You know, we had 330,000 volunteers across California, and we had a regional structure of regional managers, county captains, and then we were told to stand down in California. And the Trump campaign told us we had to, we had to win Arizona, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Florida. I think that's 5 battleground states. And in the last week alone, Californian patriots put in 1.6 million phone calls to Michigan alone in the last week.
Yeah.
And that was the turning point. Plus, we had a team that prayed every day. And so California made a difference, and Californians should be very proud of what they did. And the same is going to happen in Maricopa County, because they haven't turned a blind eye to this voter fraud. They are really doing a job in just revealing to the people the truth about what went down on November 3rd.
Oh, good. That's wonderful. You know, the truth needs to get out. Now, I know you've met President Trump many times. Tell me what he's like in person.
You know, to me, he's the most empathetic person I've ever met. He listens. I've got a great picture of me and Trump standing toe-to-toe talking about evangelical voting in South Carolina, and just telling him that he's just got to walk the walk that he's presenting. And he became I truly believe he became a true Christian on this walk, that God anointed Trump to do that job. But to give you an example, in South Carolina, even before he became the leader of the pack, it was about, when people hear that Trump's coming to the office goes from 30 to about 250 in about an hour. And if you know, the FBI, or the Secret Service, were really reluctant to let Trump stay longer than he needed to. But Trump said, no, these people are here to support me. And if they want a photo with me, I will stand with them to take a photo. And a photo was taken of every one of those 250 people. And you could see the Secret Service getting more anxious and more anxious. But he did the same for the cadets at in West Point, when he shook the hand of every cadet.
Yes, I remember that. Beautiful.
He just loves people, and you know, he's rough around the edges. But you've got to remember that Trump grew up on building sites. You know, he was, his father, an amazing man, made sure that the boys were taught the trade from the grassroots up. And that's the difference between a man that has been in politics all his life, like Biden, and a man that grew up on the ground floor.
Yes.
Just an amazing person. And I saw him grow. I mean, you know, there's a prophecy that goes something like this. I will send to the White House a man who's whispering my name. But once he gets into the White House, he will shout my name from the office, the Oval Office. And he did that at every turn.
He certainly did.
He's the only president that I know that gave an Easter message.
Yeah.
No other president that I know has done that. And he's the only president that invokes the Lord before every, what are they called? The various departments, his inner circle. He would invoke prayer before any one of those meetings went forward. So he's a changed man, and he's not finished with just yet. Yes,
well, I hope not. I appreciate the fact that he stood up for God. He stood up for the Christian faith. He stood up for, it didn't matter what your faith was, though. He stood up for people. He stood up for God first. He didn't hide the fact that he had a relationship with Jesus Christ. Yeah, he was rough around. He's rough around the edges, like you say. He was brought up in that construction environment. That's just the environment that he was brought up in.
If you've ever been on a construction site.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We know the kind of language that comes out of there.
Wear some earmuffs, but just a terrific man. And
it's unfortunate he's been treated so bad. But let me ask you this, moving on. Now, you worked with election integrity, Malcolm, for a while, and you were executive board member. What advice would you give voters regarding voting? Because we're coming up on a recall election here in California. What advice would you give, not just now, but anytime? You know.
Well, firstly, I would... The people that run Election Integrity Project in California, they've been doing it for 11 years, and they've done it on their own dime because the money wasn't coming in. So firstly, I would ask people to support Election Integrity Project. Go to their site, Election Integrity Project
California, EIPCA.
Yeah, and donate and help them out, because they've got a court case coming up in the Ninth Circuit. They're appealing the decision by the lower court to dismiss their case. And I would just encourage you, because I think the judge's word in that case were very open, allowing that appeal to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And now that that court is no longer a fully liberal progressive court, there is a chance.
Thank God.
But that's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is volunteer to be poll watchers for election integrity. They've been doing it now for 11 years, and they've got massive amount of evidence. The third thing I would do is get involved in local politics at the grassroots level. There's a project out there called Patriot Precinct Project, and you can join up and you can initiate your own precinct team. But the principal thing you've got to do is get out and vote by going to the polls. Don't mail your ballot in. Don't go anywhere near the post office. Go and vote in person. And so that would be the advice I give.
Amen. Amen.
And nominate biblically based candidates to the various things at every level of the government. Because it was John Adams said in 1798, our constitutional republic cannot survive without a moral and religious foundation. And so we need to elect people of faith into positions of power.
Yeah, Malcolm, you're so right. You're so right, because if people have values and they have morals and they have the Lord Jesus Christ and they stand on his word, then they're going to do what's right.
Yep. And that's what the book of James is all about leadership and appointing righteous leaders. And so, and even Proverbs, I'm going to read very quickly Proverbs 29:2 says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked man rules, the people groan. And I can tell you, the people are groaning.
There are a lot of groaning going on right now.
And the people should have faith that this is not over just yet.
Yeah, you know, you know what, Malcolm, my prayer is that people's eyes are open. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, your eyes have to be open to see that there's something wrong going on in the country, that there's something wrong politically. It's not about politics. This is about America, about our country.
And it's about evil versus good.
That's right. Evil versus good. That's what's happening. Yep. Evil versus good, and you can call it whatever you want to call it. It doesn't have a name because you got evil in both parties. You got people. Absolutely. It's not about. That's why it's not about party. It's about supporting your country and wanting to live free.
And electing people that will undertake their business in a righteous way, in a biblical way.
Yes, that's right. People who will do the right thing. Absolutely. Now, why is it, Malcolm, that legal immigrants have more appreciation for America than people who were born in this country? Why is that?
You know, I think because they have experienced the darkness. They've experienced what it's like to come from a country where freedoms aren't evident. And when they come here, I think like me, they get a bit of a shock to see what's going on here in America. And that's why they are awake. They are speaking out because they came here for that freedom, and it's disappearing before our very eyes. I think what they also realize is, and they carry the Constitution around in their pocket too. Like I carry a Constitution around in my pocket, and they realize that this whole structure here in America has been inverted. You know, the pyramid like this? Mm-hmm. Well, that was what it was meant to be like. Small federal government, larger control by the states, but the ultimate control by we the people. That was the intent. And it's been inverted such that it's like that now, with up here is the federal government. They had more control than the 10th Amendment ever gave them. The 10th Amendment didn't give the federal government control over education, for example. The 10th Amendment didn't give the federal government control over the environment. They were all state rules. Now, some good things have come out of that, but it should always be left up to the states. And if you think about the IRS, I think the IRS was established in 1913 for the specific purpose of funding the war effort. But they didn't put a sunset clause. We do the same in Australia. We funded our efforts in Vietnam, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, based on a tax, a small tax, which had a sunset clause that said, once the war is over, the tax is automatically removed. Not deliberated, it's automatically removed. And that should be the same here in America. You know, we fund the wars with taxpayer money, but once it's over, the tax is no longer. And that's what's happening. But not only is it do people realize that 10th Amendment is being attacked at every level, but they realize that I think it's the 17th Amendment, which gave the people the right to vote for their senators rather than the legislature.
Yes.
And what that has done is given so much more illegitimate power to senators.
That's right.
Senators were there to represent.
They were appointed.
Appointed to represent the government from an overreaching federal government, and that's no longer being done. We're not protecting our states. So I think there's a lot of things to be done just to get it back on an even keel.
Well, you know what, Malcolm? What we have is faith in God, and that's what we hang our hat on. Is our faith in God.
But as an immigrant, I mean, we see these things.
Yeah.
People have become so, what's the word I'm looking for? Doesn't matter. I can't remember the word I wanted to.
Well, I appreciate your passion and your patriotism, because you are very patriotic. You've been here a lot less time than people who've grown up, and you love this country, Malcolm. And
I do.
You really love America. And I feel for those who live here and don't even love this country. And you know, when I heard the team that won the soccer, I think it was a soccer game, whatever, they won the other night, and the whole crowd, once again, the whole stadium broke out singing our national anthem. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, and that's what I see coming back.
Yeah, I mean, the patriotism.
Yeah, patriotism.
Love of country. And love of God first.
Love of God first.
Love of God. Yeah. Love, then we love our country. We love the freedom that he gave us.
Absolutely. And you know, this is an amazing experiment, this American Republic. And it really annoys me when politicians say we've got to save our democracy. We're not a democracy.
No, we're a republic.
Constitutional republic, and that's what we've got to save. And this is the greatest country the world's ever seen.
Yeah, that's right.
But there are those in the liberal progressive left that want to bring it back to the secular pact.
Yes.
A pact who was never meant to be a part of, and they want to reduce the impact of the middle class in this country by getting rid of the middle class and joining the New World Order. I mean, that New World Order is not a joke. It's a real thing where they want to open up our borders here in America, just like they did in Europe. And God gave us boundaries. I mean, I think it's Acts 17:26 says that God created from one man all the nations. Note, nations.
Yes.
With to be fulfilled for a specific time with specific borders. So God created the nation. So these people that say, what would Jesus do on the border? Well, Jesus would turn them away and say, come in the right way. Just like John 16. I mean, no one shall come to the Lord but by me. You've got to go the right way. Otherwise, you're done as a society, as a person. So,
yeah, you're so right about that, Malcolm. Gotta do it the right way. You know, He has rules. And he set those rules in place for America, for the whole world.
Absolutely.
And that's why he founded this country on the Bible, you know, on the Word of God. But men
so there's no way that Washington would have got through that war if was he fighting the Australians, because our snipers would have taken Washington out.
Yeah. Look how God protected him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just no bullet could touch him.
I know.
That was amazing.
I believe that this country was prophesied, and this country was meant to be a godly country in all aspects of our lives, in our businesses, in our government levels of government, in our homes, in our schools, and our colleges, and our churches in particular. But our churches have become almost secular because they're not teaching the Word of God. And you know that ruling by the US Supreme Court in 1947 on separation of church and state, John Adams made it clear in his writings that, as I said, without a moral and religious foundation, we can't survive. And so the Founding Fathers knew that we had to have God in every level of our government. And we, the American people, need to recognize that. We need to recognize the writings of the Founding Fathers. I mean, the US Supreme Court based that ruling in 1947 on a letter that Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptists in Connecticut that reassured them that they would not create a national church like they had in Britain, reassuring them that there would always be a Chinese wall between church and state. Well, they took that Chinese wall statement to mean that there should be a separation of church from state.
That's right.
That was never intended by the Founding Fathers. They always intended, but there was an intent never to have state control the church.
That's right. And that's why he gave us a Second Amendment, to protect ourselves from the government, not for the government to come into our homes, knock on our doors, knock down our doors, and take our weapons and turn in your, you know, Malcolm, I think I said this the other week, but how can the government have a buyback of guns that they don't own? And people go and take their guns. So we're having a buyback of guns in the neighborhood. I said, wait a minute, did you buy those guns in the first? How can you have a buyback? And how can people, I'm talking about legitimate gun. I'm not talking about those bought on the black market, but people who legitimately own their guns should hold on to them. Not so you can go out and kill people, but protection for your home. That's your right in the Second Amendment. to, to protect your home, your family. You know,
you've only got to look to the countries that ban guns. Russia,
exactly,
68 million dead. China,
yep.
over 100 million dead. Cambodia, 4 million
right.
dead. Venezuela, same deal. I can't remember how many died. But the moment you take away the right to hold a government accountable, as Jefferson said in the Declaration of Independence, the moment you take that right away is the moment that people are no longer free.
That's right. And that's what's happened to these other countries. They gave up their guns. They gave up their God. They gave up their gun. They gave up their freedom. And now they're in bondage. Yeah, now, I want to ask you this. Now, as a 25-year veteran, now you were a retired lieutenant colonel in the Australian Army. Now, do you see a difference between the Australian Army and military and the military here in the United States?
The only difference I would say is that the top brass, the chiefs of staff, that group of leaders have become politicized. Now, the American military is by the Constitution required to protect the Constitution from both external and internal enemies. That's why I believe that the military might have to get involved in this mess at the moment. I won't go into that because it's a bit long, my views on that, but they have the responsibility. Now, if we've been hacked by foreign countries like China, Germany, Italy, Canada, then the military has a responsibility to do something about that. And I think that's the difference. But in terms of the two militaries, I mean, we've worked, America is our strongest ally, and we are America's strongest ally.
Yes.
We've been to every war that America has been involved in since World War II. And if it wasn't for America in the Pacific and the various battles in the Pacific, Battle of Coral Sea and the like, then I might not be sitting here speaking English.
Yeah.
Because the Japanese had 55 air raids on our northern city of Darwin. But a lot of people don't know about it. It flattened Darwin, and they were on the verge of taking over half Australia. In fact, there's one bit of history where the chiefs of staff of the military in Australia decided that we could not defend all of Australia. We would defend above the Brisbane capital of Queensland, and the rest we just let go. But it was the Americans that defeated the Japanese fleets, and it was the Australian ground forces that pushed back the Japanese back to the Philippines. So we have a lot in common.
Yes.
We have a lot of equipment that's in common, and our passion for our countries are just the same.
Oh, yes. Now, I want to get to this, Malcolm. Now, you've been a motivational speaker. I wanted you to talk about a little bit. Now, you talked about America's godly heritage and the truth of America's role as a beacon of hope and light for the world.
Sure.
Can you expound a little bit on?
Sure. I was actually speaking in Arizona. I was the keynote speaker at the Independence Day celebrations in Arizona. And I spoke about this very issue. And a lot of people think Independence Day is all about the 4th of July. I see that it's a little different than that. It's about the whole journey, not just the 4th of July, because we can celebrate it, but we must never forget how it came about.
That's right.
And when I say the whole story, I'm not talking about post 1776. I'm talking about when the Pilgrims landed at Cape Cod on the 12th of November, 1620. Now, they wrote the Mayflower Compact.
Yes. And
in the Mayflower Compact, they say, we took this journey, and I'm paraphrasing here, so I won't get it exactly right, but we took this journey for God and for the furtherance of the Christian faith. Yes. Now, if you don't believe that this country is a Christian nation, just look at Article 7 of the Constitution, which says, we the signers of this document sign the Constitution into law on the 17th day of September, 1787, in the year of our Lord. They knew that this country could not survive without the Lord's coverage. And the Lord has been protecting this country since it was founded. And I just want to say something about what a Chinese leader said before he died. He was interviewed on his deathbed. He said, he was asked, "What do you want to happen to China?" And this response shocked the reporter and might shock your viewers. He said, "I want for China to become a Christian nation." And the reporter, a little stunned, he said, "But why?" He says, "Well, you've only got to look to America to see what happens when they trust in the Lord and keep God at the center of everything they do." America has been blessed, he said. So yeah, so God's been there right from the start.
Yes, and he's still here. We just need to turn back to him.
Absolutely.
Those who've turned their backs on him and turned away from him, and we got to get away from the evil stuff that's ruining this nation and turn back to God and teach it. We got to get back to our children learning about God from an early age, from babies, and not get this progressive stuff, teaching our kids about hate and all this. Oh no,
it's got to start in the family though. It's got to start at the family level.
Yeah, at the family.
And you know, one of the things that Johnson and Saul Alinsky wanted to do was get God out of our society, all aspects. And in '54, when the 501c3 status, that was the beginning when the pastors sold their souls for 30 pieces of silver just to get money into the church. And then in '62, we took prayer and religious instruction out of school. And then in '73, we introduced Margaret Sanger's eugenics.
Oh my goodness.
59 million babies in the womb. Now, God will forgive us for that, but we've got to start getting God back into every aspect. Even before campaigns, before the office opened on campaigns, we prayed to the Lord for his will to be done. We've got to do it again. We've got to pray that God's will, not what we want, but God's will be done. And his will, in my belief, is that America will turn back to God, and we can see that starting to happen right across the country with the rallies and people invoking the Lord. And so I think we're going to be okay. I really do.
We just got to get through these bruises and bumps that we're going through right now, and trust in him the whole time. You know,
get back to being the country that God wants us to be, and it starts not at the federal government, not at the state government, not at the local government. It doesn't start at the church. It starts in the family. And the families we've got to make the families the nucleus of the family, the center for God.
That's right, because the stuff we see going on now is going totally against God, and so we have to change course. But Malcolm, this has been great. I thoroughly enjoyed the discussion. I'm so happy that you were available to come and talk today and to share. And I love your spirit. I love your passion, your love for the country and family, and it's just great. Now, I want to see, are there any final words you'd like to say? Do you have contact information? Would you like people to contact you in some way? If you could tell us how people can contact you.
I'm on Facebook, Malcolm McGough. I'm the only one there with an Australian hat on. I'm cuddling my two granddaughters that I met for the first time in 2019 because I couldn't leave the country because I didn't have my permanent residency card. So I can now leave the country. But they can contact me on Facebook or just send me an email if anybody wants me to come and give a spirited presentation. I'm your man. And you can contact me on McGough, that's MC, G for George, O-U, G for George, H for Harry, M for Malcolm, S for Sam. So McGough, MS @outlook.com.
Amen. Well, thank you so much, Malcolm. I'm just grateful that you're able. And I want to thank my audience for coming each week and listening and watching. And you can contact me on DW's View, dwsviewstandup@gmail.com. And don't forget to hit that red button and subscribe, dear friends. And we'll come back next week. We'll have another guest. And you can also be a sponsor of this podcast. And don't forget to share this message with your friends and share it on social media. Guess what, friends? I have a message for you. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up, not just stand, but stand for what's right. And then let God guide you, because if we do not stand up for what we believe,